You are listening to the Red Pill Chronicles, where we help awakening souls deal with the blue pill world. I'm your host, John Dennison, and together we'll explore how to take an inner approach to your outer affairs so you can build a better life and a better world to live it in. Hello, my friend. John here again. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Red Pill Chronicles. Today we will be discussing conflict being the gateway to ascension. Before we start, though, I'd like to invite you to stop over at my name site, johndennison.com, to sign up for my newsletter. This way you'll get notice of future posts and podcasts so that you can listen to them at your convenience. And that way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. All right, let's get started now. Conflict. That's the nature of duality. We live in a dualistic universe, a dualistic reality, which is marked by swings or places upon a continuum between pairs of opposites. That's what duality is. It's basically pairs of opposites. And it's within these pairs of opposites that we live our lives. At some point, we're at one point in the continuum. At another point, we're at another point. But we're always constantly in motion. However, even though we're in motion, we do gravitate to certain places within that continuum that are based upon our perspectives, our beliefs, and the nature of how we have created ourselves for this lifetime. Now, with that said, I want you to think of this continuum as a wave, as opposed to a straight line. Think of it as a wave with peaks and troughs. And at the peak is one side of the polarity, and at the other side, at the bottom of the trough, is the other end of the polarity. Well, we can call those positive or negative. They could be good, bad, happy, sad, whatever it is that you want to have in terms of the situation you're in. There is usually an emotional reaction or response that puts us somewhere in that continuum, as well as the intention and mental approaches and processes that we bring to the table when we're within that moment. As you can see in our world right now, conflict is everywhere. Everybody is at each other's throats. Now, sometimes those who are on one set of the polarity scale, or one side of the wave, join together and form common positions. And people on the other end of the wave are forming other positions. And typically those waves, you can think of those positions within the polarity as being the interest groups or the self-interest that they're advancing. And that's what we're seeing in our world right now, is we see these conflicts of the interests or the interest groups that are vying for power in order to control the course of our common affairs. Now, the polarity scale that I want you to look at right now, that is the one most visible to everyone, is the one dealing with politics. So where do you fall along the political spectrum? If you think of it in terms of left and right, you're going to be at one side or another or somewhere in between. Are you finding yourself in the middle? Are you one who gravitates a little bit toward one side or another? Or are you one who has wholeheartedly adopted the positions and extremes on one end or another, particularly right or left? Those positions that you take pretty well determine how you're going to respond to the events in question, that whatever occurs, that reality serves up, or the situations that unfold as we are working with the common affairs of our governance, economics, and other things that affect our lives. Those positions that we take are reflections of the beliefs and perspectives that we have adopted based on how we have created ourselves to experience the moment that we're in. Now, sometimes that is a fluid creation. In other words, that we can nimbly switch from one method of interacting to another. But most of us typically are not that nimble, that we get stuck in the perspectives and beliefs that we have, and then we tend to just try to fight over them. That is the nature of politics. It's a fight over who's going to control the course of the future, or try to control it, because really we don't have control. None of us do. All we can do is try to enact and do the things that we think is going to bring about the future that we want. But as we have seen in the way things have unfolded over the years, good intentions oftentimes go bad. And it is those good intentions that I want you to beware of as you are examining the positions of the different sides here. Because everybody is going to paint a rosy picture of where they want to go, or why you should see things and adopt their view of stuff and empower them to continue forward in the future. How you do that is up to you. I'm not trying to get you to see or do things any particular way yet, other than to begin to become aware of what's going on beneath the surface, which is those fluctuations of energy and how they interact at different places along the curve. And sometimes when we get in those in places within our polarity, or let's just say toward when we get to the peak of the waveform, the amplitude, I guess you would call that, it tends to make us more excitable. The energies lift us up, and they tweak our passions and stir up all the junk we got inside of us. And it's real common at those points that our triggers are pushed, and we lash out at all those around us that seem to get in our way or don't provide the feedback to our thoughts or ideas or our vision for the future that we want them to have. Because let's face it, each of us has an idea of what we want for ourselves. Each of us has an idea of how government should function. We each have an idea of how we should relate and interact with other people. And it's the acting out of these ideas that creates so many problems in human relations, because not everybody shares them. And when they don't share them, they may say or do things contrary to what we want or believe, and then we get in a situation where we're in conflict. Well, look no further than Amy Coney Barrett, or as they're starting to call her, ACB. I am not really one to use initials a lot. It's going to just confuse me if I do, so I'll just try to call her by her name for now. But we're starting to see the battle lines being drawn, that they're all up in arms on the left, that she is a conservative and is going to further swing the court to a conservative bent when the court had been for so long ruling cases in basically a progressive or a liberal framework, and using interpretations that are conducive to basically changing the rules of the game that were established by courts and legislatures prior to any particular ruling. But these conflicts that we're going through, I want you to see that they have another purpose. They have another meaning far beyond just the essential circumstances that they're creating for us to experience. And that is really what the purpose of those experiences are. Remember, we come at this from a standpoint that your life is a stop on the journey of your soul to create certain experiences by which you will evolve, primarily energetically, but by the expansion of consciousness and this demonstration of your consciousness, and that you have grown through the various tests and lessons that that life's catalysts bring. This is the process of working our way back to oneness, or to God, to reunion with God. Because, again, from the perspective that I'm sharing, is that we have all, at some point, been made in the image of God, with an aspect of that energy, and that energy is within us, and it's for us to connect to it and let it guide us to work our way back to the wholeness that we are. That wholeness is accomplished through a process of integrating our inner and outer worlds, or as you might call it, your inner self and your outer self. The mind and emotions that you experience now are part of what I would call your outer self, whereas your inner self is the soul, the higher source, God, whatever is inside your subconscious, whatever's inside you that is acting behind the scenes to shape your life and lead you to the experiences that you're getting. And then, of course, the inner voice that it speaks through, if you are listening to it and you can hear it, will provide you with inspiration and impulses to think or act or feel in a particular way. These are the signs, or at least some of the signs, that you have to learn to read as you're working your way along the spiritual path back home. The whole process of traveling the spiritual path is referred to as awakening. And we hear awakening a lot in the world. I mean, particularly the term woke, which is used as an awareness of the inequities and supposed injustices within our society. And I say supposed because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What we're trying to establish is a framework for essential fairness for everyone. We're not trying to establish equality of result. We're trying to establish the opportunity that you can work toward the life that you want, notwithstanding whatever that definitional term is that you're using for awakening or how you're approaching your life. The experiences that were happening in our world today are happening for a purpose, and it's not just to fight over the direction we're going. These situations that are putting us in conflict are playing out to escalate the energies and bring us to a point where we are going to be forced to evolve or destroy ourselves in the process. It is humanity working its way toward a collective choice as to where it's going to go from here and how it's going to get there. Right now, the forces that at work in the political arena and the ones pulling their strings behind the scenes are acting from a place of selfishness. No matter how much they pretend to be doing it for you, there is an element of selfishness to it, even if it's only selfishness to advance the interests of some group or idea that they have that they're fighting for. It's an attachment that the ego has formed to an idea to the point that it's willing to fight over it. And it's the struggle to make that come about which is going to mark the determination of its progress and how it relates to its adversaries along the way. Now, we are going through a tremendous upheaval of our society. Every aspect of it seems to be subject to scrutiny. And where that's going to end, we don't know. We're seeing cancel culture happening. We're seeing efforts at revolution occurring within some of our cities. We are seeing civil disobedience and unrest occurring at various places. We have a tremendous divide between left and right because they have totally different visions of how to get there, how to get to a future that will provide peace and plenty. In other words, that will provide the abundance necessary for you to have a life that serves you the way you want to be served, so that you can begin to fill that gap between the life you've got and the one you want. Unfortunately, the way the world works right now, that gap is an ever-present thing because it's a function of the catalyst that needs to happen in your life in order for you to evolve. So that gap that you're living in that's making you discontent with the status quo is there for a reason. It is for you to see and experience situations that are going to force you to know different things about yourself, and should you choose to evolve. It's going to force you to look at your relationships with others and how you treat them. It's going to force you to examine your activities and how you conduct your own affairs. You'll remember that what I'm trying to get to is to get you to take an inner approach to those outer affairs, because what goes on inside of you is just as important as what's happening in your outer world, at least to the extent that you are ready to evolve to some higher expression of what you can be. Humanity is trying to evolve to some higher expression of what it can be. It may not know it, but that's the effect of what's happening right now. And we're all going to be at each other's throats. I mean, look at the world with China right now. Is that China has been pushing and pushing and pushing to advance its interests, and it's probably overplayed its hand. And now the United States and much of the West are beginning to push back. But we're seeing those conflicts not only in the geopolitical arena, and by the way, there are a lot of different energies out there of conflict within other geopolitical relationships, particularly in the Middle East. We're seeing them we're seeing them everywhere. We're seeing them here in the United States with what's happening with our in the streets and the responses to the COVID lockdowns. Conflict is the instrument by which we evolve. If there was no conflict with the reality, in other words, if you just felt like everything was hunky-dory, you're not going to do anything to change it. If you're not going to be working with the situation that you want to change, there's no reason for you to change. So, it's nice to have moments like that for rest, but you have to realize, as Jim Rohn once said, make rest a necessity, not an avocation. So when you have these moments when everything is falling in place together, enjoy them. That's what it's all about. But realize that that's just a rest stop for you until the next bunch of crap comes flowing down the pike. And that's really what life is about. We go through life expecting everything to be good, and we sometimes get upset when it's not. Yet, that's not life. Life is really about these situations that bring us struggle and conflict that we have to work through in order to become more, in order to find a way to live together with the other people in our lives, or to impress upon them the strength of our desires and willpower to make it happen. But conflict, which is the clashing of energies, of ideas, clashing of energies within physical entities like people, clashing of ideas within societies or within geopolitical relations as to power. All of these things are conflicts. And when these energies clash, they have to be resolved. Now you think of it kind of like trying to force, when parties have differing views and perspectives, trying to force them to come together. It's like trying to force two positive ends of a magnet together. You have to hold it there and force them to stay together, and sometimes you can't even do that. Well, the change or the shifting of the perspectives and the expansion of the consciousness allows us to take a different approach. And with that new approach comes new tests, new lessons, new opportunities to apply what we've learned, and to test it and decide whether it's going to work for us or not, and we move on from there. And then from there it keeps creating new situations. Whatever we choose, a new situation is going to come. Change is happening all the time. And if you aren't getting the changes you want, then perhaps what's happening is you're expecting that the life is going to play out the way you want, instead of you responding to the way the life is playing out. Remember, this moment, the way things are, is created for your benefit, for you to look inside you for the things in you that are hiding within you, that you don't want to see, that are contributing to making it the way that it is. Now, what is the way it is? I mean, it's not just the situation; it's the response to the situation too. It's how you are feeling inside about it, how you are allowing it to motivate you, or rile you, or trigger you, or whatever response is getting there, the emotions it's setting off, or not. All those things are responses to energy. Well, as we move toward a fifth dimensional reality, our energies have to increase so that we are prepared to enter into this reality and can survive within it. It would be sort of like trying to live in a world where everybody's moving at 100 miles an hour and you're standing still. It'd be very hard for you to interact with it, much less maybe even to see it. And that's what we're trying to do, is get to a point where we can at least glimpse the vision of what that world might hold in store. We are finding ourselves, stopping ourselves from evolving because we keep using our energies to expand this conflict until we get to a place where the conflict is so overwhelming that we are going to have to find some way to release those energies. We saw this back in the United States back in the early 1800s, going from 1820, 1825, all the way up to 1860, that there were a series of events that the country kept working its way toward civil war, but it kept kept averting it in order to preserve the peace. Well, they never found a way to resolve the problem because they were all so entrenched in their sides that they didn't want to. They wanted their way or no way. And when you're dealing with an evil like slavery, that may be the only course of action, which is it's either an A or B response. It's either you have slavery or you don't have slavery. It's not like there's any middle ground where a person can be a slave a part of the time and not a slave another. Though I can tell you that some people that work for wages in certain companies feel like they're slaves anyway, like they don't have a choice. But we can get to that another time. Back to conflict. Conflict is a gateway. It creates an opening for us to evolve, to know ourselves, to address the conditions within us that cause us to fight, and to find a way to move forward together. I cannot emphasize this principle enough, is that we are all going to the same place. And whether you think of this as heaven or the fifth dimension or reunion with God, it doesn't matter how you see it. We're all working our way there. And maybe we're choosing different paths to get there, and we have different interests, and we're at different places along the way. But we're all part of the same energy, the same light that God creates this world with, and enervates us, and provides us the guidance in order to live our lives. Now, if you don't believe in God, that puts us directly in conflict. And if you don't believe in God, that's okay. I don't think you have to believe in God in order to take the path of inner development. But your inner development that you are going to have to make to deal with these situations and to avoid having them destroy you in the process of moving through them is going to have to happen whether you believe in God or not, if you're going to survive it. And we as a collective humanity are going to have to find a way to address the conflicts and address the causes of our conflicts and address the destinations that we're trying to get to, and in order to find some commonality to work toward together. If we don't find a common basis for existing together and moving forward toward the place from which we all came, then we're just left to fight it out here among ourselves. Well, we can see, you can feel it. It's in the air. It's a future that's already created that is manifesting the circumstances now in order to be so it can be created. You know it. You can feel it happening within you. You know Armageddon's coming. I don't know what form it is. I don't know that it's necessarily going to take shape in the way that the book of Revelations predicts. I'm not in any way, shape, or form tied to that sort of a prophecy. But we can feel that something serious is happening, that our world is moving into a period of tribulation where there is going to be great struggle and suffering and conflict across the land. You know it and I know it. And I need you to awaken, and I need you to become to realize this, because you are the only hope for our world. You, as an awakening soul, are the ones who have to show the rest how to release the hold of their own desires and their willingness to fight over them. If you can't do it, they can't do it, because they're not as awake as you are. Some of them are still so caught up in it that that's all they think of is how to get for themselves. We've heard that this ascension process is supposed to be accompanied by what is called the Great Separation, where, I don't know, where some are going toward fifth dimension and some are staying in third dimension for a while. Is this true? I don't know, but I'm feeling a separation happening as I look out at the world. I'm seeing that some people are trying to rely upon love and light and character and truth and goodness and all the things that we hold within us that are dear. And other people, they just don't know how to deal with the situation and have to take out all their energies and emotions and hatreds and rage on their adversaries. You know that the way to get to where you want to go is to love. Well, you're coming to the precipice. And at that precipice, we are going to have to change. Your changes will be much easier if you can begin to detach from the ideas and beliefs and perspectives that you have over which you're fighting now. But if you can't, you'll keep fighting until you're forced to, or until somebody is destroyed in the process. And it could be you, it could be those you love, it could be ones they love, or it could be bystanders totally unrelated to your conflict. We don't know. You never know what the collateral damage is from energies that are unreleased, that are released in conflict. All we know is that they harm people. They can harm their lives, they can harm their livelihoods, they can harm their ability to move forward smoothly into the future. You're making this journey home, but you're not here alone. You're here to do it by living the principles that you have been developing, that have allowed you to awaken, to allowed you to access these inner parts of yourself and to express the love that you know that you have. And possibly even the creative energies that you have inside you that are waiting to be released to work in your world. That may come in the form of a mission to make a difference. It may come just helping somebody in need. Giving a couple bucks to someone, a homeless person on the street. I don't know what it is. Or just a smile to someone you see that looks like they're deep in thought and suffering. Whatever it is that you have to give it, do it. Be it. Don't hold it back. a lot of times the things inside of that cause us to fight do make us hold it back. It's hard to be in that loving space when we're fighting all the time. I was a lawyer, and I still am a lawyer, but I was in litigation for a lot of years, and it's 30 years. And it's a hard road to hoe when you're going out to fight other people's battles every day. It got to a point that I could see the energies on all sides. But the great lesson that I learned of all, as I could begin to see these energies, is that solutions could never appear, and the parties could never take matters into their own hands to end their conflicts until they dissipated the energies of conflict. These would be the emotions and the thoughts and the reality, the physical reality that they were in, that was creating all of the catalysts that were causing them to fight, or over which they were fighting. These catalysts were bringing situations that allowing them to express these energies through conflict. And to the extent that they were able to take matters into their own hands, required an expansion of consciousness to a point that these energies had been dissipated or set aside, so that their consciousness could step forward and say, hey, more fighting isn't going to take me where I want to go. It's just costing me money, it's costing me energy and hardship and destroying my life. And that's the point that humanity is coming to, is that we're going to that precipice where we're going to be killing each other and we're going to be destroying stuff. Mad Max is going to be a reality if we all don't wake up and do something to stop it. Well, the thing I suggest you do to stop it is to find a way to step outside the polarity wars. And the only way you can do that is to break your own attachments to the things over which you're fighting. If you don't do that, you are going to get wrapped up in the energies of the conflict and swept along to a place where it's just going to keep escalating until something else happens that's going to enable those to explode, and see who's left standing when that happens. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see anybody hurt. I don't want to see you hurt. I want to see you go smoothly into the future, to go into it by choice, where it's not forced upon you by a God that says, hey, it's time to wake up and evolve, and hits you over the head with a 2x4 as it turns your life upside down. I want you to do it by choice. But I also want you to do your part for the awakening and the new world that we're trying to create, for the fifth dimension that we're trying to usher in. You and I are here to help anchor in this new world. But to do that, we have to reflect the very best that we have. We have a lot of great principles and ideals that we live by or we hold, but we don't always live by them. But even today, with the street violence and the Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter protests, we're seeing cancel culture coming in to force everyone to bend to their will. Well, that's just escalating the situation, because when their force comes at you, if you're opposing that force, you either have to redirect it, avoid it, or counter it. And some element of that is essential in order to survive in these times. But if you can extricate yourself from the situations where those conflicts arise, it will be much, much easier for you. So I do suggest that you do your best to find your peace inside you, a place of balance where you can be, where the stuff that's going on in the world isn't going to affect you. That does not mean to withdraw into your shell and stick your head in the sand. This is not a matter of segregating yourself from the world. You are here as part of this world, and you are having to add your contributions to help it expand, to help it grow. Or not, if you fail to evolve and to address the conditions that are allowing these energies to come forward in you. You may have heard we have a thunderstorm raging outside, and my dog she's just scared to death, and she's crawling up under my desk here by my feet where she hides when the lightning strikes. So she's having a tough time right now, so please forgive me if I have to speak to her. Her name's Lila, by the way. And Lila, she was a rescue we picked up a couple years ago. And she's been a wonderful, wonderful addition to us. But Lila's a bit skittish, particularly when there are loud noises like firecrackers and thunderstorms and lightning. So, excuse me if I'm a little distracted. I've just lost my train of thought. But again, let's get back to the gateway to ascension. Remember, what you're trying to do is to make yourself energetically aligned with these fifth dimensional energies, which means you have to purify your energy fields. And that means to address the lower, I won't call them lower energies. Taking care of yourself isn't a lower energy. Loving yourself isn't a lower energy. But the way in which you do it, or doing it to the exclusion of others, or regardless of whether it harms others, can be a reflection of being stuck in a three-dimensional, Vindaloop. You need to evolve in order to get to the fifth dimension. Our world needs to evolve. If we don't evolve, we will perish. And God can start over. And maybe that's what has happened. Is going to happen. But I really think it's less a matter of the perishing than it is a matter of continuing to force us through these tribulations in order to deal with the situations. Because the situations are going to get so bad and the emotions and hardships so hard and the struggles and conflicts so great, and that they will be intractable. There will be no way to solve them unless we change, unless we let go of what we want. I mean, it's not a matter of capitulating and turning the field over to those that you don't agree with. It's not a matter of the left being happy with Amy Coney Barrett, or a matter of the right lording it over them and laughing at the release of rage and anger and emotional outbursts that have happened by so many because they're unable to deal with Donald Trump or the circumstances of watching their great progressive experiment start slipping away. I understand that. They've got a strong attachment to that. And if you're one of them, my heart goes out to you because I know you want what's best for our country. And I know you want what's best for people. But so do the ones that you're fighting with. And those of you that they are fighting with that are on the right, you've got to understand that while there is a set of rules that you're trying to get everybody to play by, especially under the Constitution and following the laws, there is a perception by many on both sides, not just on the left, that the laws that we have are not being fairly or equally applied to everyone. There is no justice because they are not equal in terms of how it's applied. This is the basis behind the discontent of large swaths of the black community, that they feel that they have not had an opportunity to enjoy their equality because they felt that the deck was stacked against them. Whether it is or whether it isn't, I don't know. I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what their perception is. I've heard many of the voices that are trying to instigate their activity against the system, but that's not ultimately going to be the test. The test is each individual is going to be having to face themselves in their relationship to others, and their relationship to the system, and their relationship to the reality, and say, what do I want for myself? What is it that's really aligned with me and where I want to go? I don't think a system of governance that's built upon corruption and control is really what you're trying to get at, nor centralized authority where other people are telling you what to do. I don't know quite where it's going to end up, but I know that these forces are going to be at odds to set course to this new destination. But the interim ports along the way are not agreed upon, especially the things that we want government to do for us. Some want to use the government, implement wide sweeping changes to address the problems that they see in the world. And I understand that completely. When you get so frustrated and fed up with nothing seeming to happen that you just want to do whatever you can to make it happen. But just like the mask laws are getting people upset about losing their freedoms and having to kowtow to local and state officials that seem to be overstepping the bounds of their authority at the expense of their individual freedoms, I might add, that it just is moving everything to a state of escalating conflict. I keep coming back to conflict, but it's how we approach these conflicts and how we reconcile them and how we interact together despite their conflicts and how we dissipate the energies of conflict that's going to determine how the future that I see is Armageddon's coming. And the situation here is going to continue to deteriorate and get worse and worse and threaten to take us all down with it, or at least to drag us all into it. And into these fights, then we have to say, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to dissipate or redirect the energies that are causing us to fight so that we don't? Because if we don't and they just keep building, the results are going to be inevitable. Armageddon. Or maybe a series of Armageddons where we're all fighting each other. And the total destruction just occurs like the purge. I don't know. But I do know that we can be so much more than we are. We can live the things that we've been practicing inside. And if you're one who's been here, believes they've been around here multiple lifetimes over the centuries, then you're going to realize that you've seen these energies over and over and over again. Our technology may be advancing. Our medical abilities certainly are. But our abilities to deal with stress, to deal with conflict, we haven't figured that out yet. But it's time to. If we don't do it, we won't be here. And it won't be a fifth dimensional result for us. It will be back in another third dimensional reality to keep us going around again. Even if we collectively push the reset button, it's not going to end our struggles. We're just going to come back and do it around again and set the stage for another set of lifetimes and realities where we have to try again. I don't want that for our world, and I don't want it for you. I want you to be at peace. I want you to be at peace now. I want you to be at peace in the affairs of our world. I want you to be at peace on and with your journey back home. So much so that other people see it and want it for themselves, and that they are willing to come along, or at least to try it on for size so that maybe it can help them deal with whatever's getting them down. We're all going to be in this boat. We better start figuring out how to bail it and sail it or it's not going to be keeping us afloat for much longer. But I think if you begin to look at your conflicts to say, this is an opportunity to evolve. How can you meet this conflict in a better way? You start looking at what the energies are inside you. You look at what your emotions are that you're feeling. What are the thought patterns that are triggering it or released as it's happening? What is the subsequent response to when they do? I mean, is it something that it comes and goes and it never happens, or does it leave you shaking for the rest of the day and shaking your head as to how you let yourself succumb once again to the same stimuli? We have to learn those lessons. If we can practice the principles and take the approaches necessary to get us to our new destination. You know where that is. We're all going to the same place, sometimes in different ways, sometimes at different times. But ultimately we're going to end up home. The question is, how do we get there, and what do we do with our time in between? I hope you use yours to create a foundation of peace so that you don't get swept away in the battles that are taking place in our world and the ones that are going to keep coming and coming and coming. Stand from a place of love and light and free will. Show others the way. You can do it. I know you can. Thank you for listening today. Again, my name is John Dennison, and you can reach me at johndennison.com. I've got a number of websites that are linked there, and you can also get a free consultation. But again, I would appreciate it if you do like this podcast. Not only share it with a friend, but sign up for my newsletter at one of my websites so that you can get notice of future podcasts and keep yourself on the path to where you're trying to go. Don't let life waylay you and sidetrack you and detour you from the destination you seek. Together we're going to get there. God bless you indeed. Go with love. You have been listening to the Red Pill Chronicles, where we help awakening souls move in a better way through a blue pill world. For more information, visit us at peaceoptions.com to explore how you can find your peace through knowing yourself and following your inner voice. Or at missionlaunch.com, where we offer coaching and consulting to help you make the difference in your world.